What has happened to H. Rap Brown since? Has he changed? What is he doing now? We'll find out in just a moment. Welcome to Like It Is. It's been a long time. 25 years, at least. How did you come to get the name that you now are known by, Jamil Al-Amin?
I seek refuge in Allah from misleading and from being misled, from betraying and being betrayed into ignorance by others. I ask Allah to guide my heart and to guide my tongue. And I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin means beautiful servant of Allah, the trustworthy. Again, the naming is very significant. Naming in any society is significant because it gives one something that he aspires to. It gives a description as to what a person is. My name was given to me when I was incarcerated, when I was in prison, after becoming Muslim. And again, the name Jamil, which the Arabic translation is beautiful. Abdullah means servant of Allah, and the Al-Amin is the trustworthy, which was one of the titles that the Prophet was known by, you know, trustworthy.
Was it in prison that you embraced Islam?
I became Muslim. I took a shahada, what's called the Declaration of Faith, when I was incarcerated, when I was in prison, yes, when I was on Rikers Island.
And who bestowed that name on you?
There was a strong Islamic movement known as the Darul Islam movement, which was headquartered at Senate at the Yasin Mosque out in Brooklyn. And they used to come inside the prisons to conduct the Jummah, the Friday services. So it was these brothers who came in, you know, and one of the brothers who invited me to come to Jummah. And I went several times before becoming Muslim, but after becoming Muslim, one of the brothers gave me the name.
Let's go back a bit. Where were you raised, born and raised?
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
What kind of young man were you?
Well,
let's say as a student, what kind of personality were you? Were you athletic? Are you quiet, shy, outspoken? What kind of young man were you?
I guess, you know, some of all those things. I played ball.
Basketball?
Basketball, football, and track. Was brought up in the church. You know, we were brought up in the church.
What church?
It was the Baptist church. My mother's church, my father's church for a while. And
really, your father was a pastor?
No, not a pastor.
Oh, he just his church. Okay.
Yeah, he attended the church. But the activism became through my brother Ed, who he's an older brother, my older brother. And he became involved in the movement when he set in at the Greyhound bus station and was expelled from Southern University.
Where was this? What town?
This is in Baton Rouge. You know, this was during the sit-in demonstrations. We had been active earlier just in the community during voter registration with the YMCA. But as the political activism, you know, that I was involved in later, had its bearing upon what Ed had done. I was still in high school. Ed was expelled from Southern University and later got a scholarship to Howard. But as a result of that, you know, I was propelled into a kind of activism in dealing with the students at Southern University.
Well, it's not as simple as all that. Your education, you didn't learn much about our history in school.
Oh, no. I think that the only African-American personality that may have occurred in the books that we used, it was either George Washington Carver or Booker T. Washington.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was a total absence of any kind of African-American or black positive image, you know, for us when we were coming up as to the history.
So then, when did the political education begin, which precedes, I would think, political activism?
Well, it was clear in terms of the kind of apartheid that was being practiced in the South and throughout America at that particular time. It was clear that there was an injustice that was being done.
We're talking about the 50s now.
The 50s and into the 60s, you know. So again, it was a spawning ground for activism because people were keenly aware of the difference between, you know, the European community and the African-American community. I lived in Baton Rouge, where you have Southern University and you have LSU. And I lived about a mile from LSU. So we would, visit the campus that LSU had, and there was no comparison between what LSU had and what Southern University was. And Southern University was one of the better, physical plants that African Americans had for school at that particular time, but there was no comparison in terms of LSU. And just the things that was instilled in us as youngsters growing up in the South as a means of trying to survive, what your mother always tries to instill in you, to make you do things so as not to antagonize, to make yourself a target in a situation where, African American males were being killed. So these are the things that were prominent in the environment, but at the same time, as Allah says in the Quran, He says, fight tyranny and oppression, because tyranny and oppression is worse than slaughter.
But what I want to know is where it came from. I mean, if you were well reared to be, seen and not heard, respectful and all of that, where did this spine come from? And what was the reaction on the part of your parents when they saw your shoulders beginning to square and your spine beginning to straighten?
Again, the Creator has placed within every person a kind of understanding of what is natural. He says, men are created with the inclination to do what's natural. It's not natural for people to be enslaved. But again, even in the environment that tries to make this acceptable to you, you still have some resistance to it. And so this, coupled with the fact that the movement was gaining momentum, the movement was gaining momentum in the 50s and the 60s. And so through media, we saw images of people who were resisting. And within ourselves, we understood that there was a natural thing that you had to stand up at some time and say that, we can't go any further with this.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll continue in a moment. Stay with us.